Major Elena Vasquez had been unconscious for 6 hours. The ZYXR believed she was dead. The alien species had assumed that the human soldier, buried under the rubble of the destroyed command center, had expired from her injuries. Her bio-signals were so minimal, her vital functions so suppressed, that their advanced scanners registered her as terminated. It made sense. Humans were fragile. One of their kind, crushed under a collapsed building, should be dead. What the ZYXR didn't understand was human physiology at its extremes. Elena's body had entered a state of hibernation, a survival mechanism her species developed over millennia of facing desperate situations. Her heart rate had dropped to barely perceptible levels. Her breathing had become almost invisible. To all external measurements, she was gone. But she wasn't dead. She was sleeping. And she was healing. The ZYXR commander, Vexsol, made the strategic decision based on what he believed to be fact. With the human commander eliminated, the Earth forces would collapse. Morale would shatter. Victory was assured. He ordered his forces to advance on the final human stronghold. Across the planet, in underground bunkers and fortified positions, humanity's remaining soldiers prepared for what they believed would be their last stand. Without Elena, the brilliant tactician who had kept them alive against impossible odds for 3 years, they felt the weight of inevitable defeat. The ZYXR attack began at dawn. Then, at precisely that moment, Elena's eyes snapped open. She didn't remember entering hibernation. She didn't remember the building collapsing. Her mind emerged from the deep sleep with absolute clarity and purpose, a gift of the hibernation state. She was disoriented for only seconds before her training kicked in. She assessed her surroundings, her injuries, her options. The rubble had shielded her from the worst of the blast. Her left arm was broken. Her ribs were cracked. But she was alive, and her mind was sharper than it had been in days. The hibernation state had given her something precious, time to recover, mentally and physically, without the exhaustion that constant warfare inflicted. Elena dug herself out of the rubble with methodical determination. It took an hour. When she emerged into daylight, she activated her communication device. Command, this is Vasquez. Status report, now. The silence that followed lasted 3 seconds, an eternity in military time. Elena? Her second-in-command, Captain Torres, sounded like he'd heard a ghost. We thought, the ZYXR said you were dead. They've been broadcasting it across all channels. I was unconscious, Elena replied, moving toward the nearest weapons cache. Now I'm not. Status report. What's our position? Torres relayed the dire situation. The ZYXR were advancing on the final stronghold. Humanity had perhaps 6 hours before complete collapse. The entire war hung in the balance. Elena moved through the ruins with purpose. Her injuries were severe, but she'd fought through worse. She commandeered a radio transmission tower and broadcasted a message across every human frequency on the planet. This is Major Vasquez. I'm alive. I'm coming to you. And we're going to end this war. The effect was instantaneous. Human morale, which had been crumbling, crystallized into fierce determination. If Elena was alive, then surrender was not inevitable. If Elena was moving, then victory was possible. She reached the stronghold 3 hours later, moving through the ZYXR lines like a ghost, using her knowledge of their patrol patterns, knowledge she'd spent 3 years gathering. When she arrived at the command center, every soldier saluted her, tears streaming down their faces. They're advancing on this position in 3 hours, Torres said urgently. We can't hold. We need an evacuation plan. Elena studied the tactical map. Her mind, refreshed and sharp from hibernation, saw something the exhausted command staff had missed. A pattern. A weakness in the ZYXR deployment that their expanded forces had created while celebrating what they thought was her death. We're not evacuating, Elena said quietly. We're attacking. Attacking? Torres looked at her like she'd lost her mind. We're outnumbered 5-1. Exactly, Elena replied. Which means they're confident. Which means they're sloppy. I want a surgical strike on their command ship. If we can reach Vex Sol and force his surrender, the entire advance collapses. These forces are too coordinated for independent action. What followed was the most desperate, audacious military operation of the entire war. Elena led 300 soldiers through a gap in the ZYXR lines that existed for exactly 47 minutes before closing. They moved like phantoms, guided by her intimate knowledge of enemy positions and strategies. They reached the command ship. Elena faced Vex Sol alone in his chamber, her broken arm hanging at her side, her ribs screaming with every breath, her body ravaged by injury and barely recovered from hibernation. Yet her eyes burned with a fire the ZYXR commander had never encountered before. You declared me dead, she said quietly. You were wrong. The battle lasted 2 minutes. Elena's exhaustion sharpened mind, combined with 3 years of studying ZYXR combat patterns, made the difference. When Vex Sol fell, his command structure fractured. Within hours, the ZYXR military issued a surrender directive. The war was over. That night, as Elena lay in the medical facility recovering, Torres asked her the question that had haunted him since her emergence from the rubble. How did you survive? How did you recover so fast? Elena smiled weakly. My species learned a long time ago that sometimes, rest is resistance. That sleep can be a weapon. That the time to strike hardest is when your enemy thinks you're already dead. She closed her eyes, finally allowing herself true rest. The ZYXR had miscalculated humanity one final time. They had forgotten that humans didn't always fight through conventional means. Sometimes, they simply refused to stay down.